Hello again. This is Zach Green and Cody Harvey with you for our second podcast for PGA for Cheat Code Fantasy Sports. But even though the name's Cheat Code, that doesn't mean there is a specific cheat code winning at fantasy sports. Otherwise, Cody and I would not have day jobs and we'd be playing all day long because we would win all the time. But our goal is to give you guys data-driven picks through player pools, articles, and cheat sheets with stats so that you guys can become better players yourself. And the idea is, as crazy as it sounds, is for you guys to get so good that you don't need us, or you're just using us as a reaffirmation of your picks, us telling you, yeah, you did a great job selecting those guys. So we've also started doing some ownership projections and point projections. And right now we only have that for a few things, but the goal is to obviously get that going for all sports and everything. But we want to make sure everything that we do is 100% good for you guys before we roll it out. And our goal is to have honesty and integrity. You know, we're not going to say, all right, we like this guy, and then go play somebody else. Who we're giving you in the podcast and in our player pools and articles is who we're going to be playing ourselves. So if you lose, we're losing too. We're not making fun of you because we're winning off a different place. So you can follow us on Twitter, Cheat Code FS, at the Cody Harvey, or at Okie Cowpoke 14. We also have a website, and that'll be coming more information on Twitter whenever that's ready to roll out. So let's get started by looking at the RBC Heritage, Cody, and recap our, if people missed it, our cash plays from the podcast and how they did last week.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Zach. So cash plays for the RBC Heritage, our cash core was pretty stellar. We mentioned on the podcast, Webb Simpson, Ian Poulter, Brian Harman, and then if you needed to drop down to the 6K range, Matthew NeSmith. So Webb, of course, took down the entire tournament, finished as the top scorer on DraftKings with 145 DK points. Ian Poulter was in the mix till the final round, really, finished with 106 DK points. Brian Harman was blazing in the fourth round, kind of saved his tournament. Ended up with 95.5 DK points, and local boy Matt NeSmith just was great value, hit 89.5 DK points. So Zach, why don't you do a recap for your GPP picks from the RBC Heritage?
All right. Well, Luke Donald was a pick, and we kind of mentioned this last week. It was pretty much going to be a boom or bust. He's not the best golfer, but he played really well in historically at RBC Heritage. But obviously, we got the bad version of him last week. 24.5 points on DK and +1, and he missed the cut. So just wasn't that great. But the next one, Brooks Koepka, he scored 116 DK. He was alive on the last day. He had that eagle where he made the green on a par 4, which was crazy. And then shot -18, and he finished 7th. So that was a great one. And then Russell Henley, another one that he couldn't get enough going. 32 DraftKings points, missed the cut, but he scored a -2. So, Cody, how about you recap how yours did?
Yeah, so we'll start at the bottom. So Shane Lowry was one of my GPP picks. He missed the cut, finished at -1, so he missed it by 3. Finished with 28 DK points. Had a really hard time on day 1, better on day 2, but just couldn't make up the difference. Kevin Kisner missed the cut on the number at -3. It was funny, he actually sent a tweet out saying how excited he was to golf on the weekend. It was a little bit premature because he was one of the ones that missed when the cut number moved. So he was disappointing, 34 DK points. And then Ian Poulter came through, 106 DK points. Again, was in the mix till the final day, finished 14th, -16. So before we get into this week's tournament, the Travelers Championship, I just want to remind everybody there's notable names coming back this week, namely Patrick Cantlay Paul Casey. We don't know how they're going to react in their first tournament back from the break. Pardon me. And last week was a great example of that. We saw opposite ends of the spectrum. We saw Hideki Matsuyama, elite ball striker, should have been built to play at Harbour Town, and he ended up missing the cut. Too much rust to knock off. He just didn't look right. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we've got Tyrell Hatton, he had to share the lead after 54 holes, and he was contending up until 16 on the back nine on Sunday. So we don't know. That potential range of outcomes is really wide. We don't know what we're going to get with Cantlay and Casey. Both of these guys are studs. I like them both for GPPs. I'll talk about them later on. But really, there's not a lot of safety in them this week. Great GPP plays I'd look to avoid in cash right now. So that brings us to this week's tournament, the Travelers Championship. So it's played at TPC River Highlands. It's a short course. It's par 70, 6,841 yards. Redesigned by Pete Dye, so it's got some Pete Dye features in it. Namely, off the tee, you're going to have your landing zones that you want to place your ball in. More of a premium on accuracy. Shouldn't really see the bombers like Bryson and DJ load up the driver on too many holes. This is more about accuracy and setting up your second shot approach. So we got bunkers that are scattered throughout the fairway and green side. Greens are easy to hit, but if you miss, you've got to be able to get up and down. So scrambling and bogey avoidance should be key. This is going to be another low scoring tournament. Jim Furyk shot at 58 here. Patrick Cantlay, when he was an amateur, shot a 60. So we're going to see some low scoring again. So it's going to really affect our builds when it comes to cash and GPPs. So Zach, why don't you give us a little first look at the weather?
Yeah, I just want to piggyback off something you said though with the low scores. Normally we're talking like 475, 500 is a good score for cash games and safe. But last week it was over 500, and to win GPPs was in 700. And so we're probably looking at something like that. So you want to make sure that a normal one is 7 or 8 times for cash and about 10 to 12 for GPPs. But this one we may need to look even higher with how easy this course is. I know that I was reading some this morning. There's a par 4 that's under 300 yards. And so definitely going to be lots of eagles on that hole. And then the par 5s are pretty easy birdie holes as well. But I just want to mention that as far as weather goes, like I mentioned this last week, we're recording on Tuesday, so a lot can change between now and then. Usually we have a pretty good idea about wind and temperature, but as far as any precipitation, it can definitely change between now and then. But so far, if it started, tomorrow, which it doesn't, but it looks like great weather on Thursday and Friday with very light winds and no chances of rain. Maybe around 4 or 6 local time, but that should be after everyone's pretty much done for the day. Saturday, again, pretty good weather, but Saturday the rain could start a little bit earlier, maybe 1 or 2 o'clock. And then Sunday is going to be the day that we have to watch out for, because there's pretty much rain chances starting early in the morning all the way throughout the day and overnight Saturday. So you could have the course kind of already flooded depending on how much they get. Obviously, it's going to be something we're going to be watching for. We're going to give updates in Slack every day. I'll post another one tomorrow in the morning, and then I'll post one tomorrow night while people are making their lineups. And I'll give weather for each round of Showdown, because that affects things too. But the biggest thing, and that's another reason why we're going to have such low scores, is the wind is going to be almost still all week, maxing out maybe 10 miles an hour. So easy course and then no wind to have to battle with. And then temperatures are going to be nice in the mornings. You could see some temperatures in the 60s in the mornings, which is going to lead to very low scores for those guys in the mornings. But even the highs are only going to be like in the mid 80s. So nothing like we saw with Fort Worth, and you're not going to have the humidity like you did in South Carolina. And then I just want to again reiterate that it's too early to worry about the rain on Saturday and Sunday. Something to keep in mind. Thursday and Friday, we should have no problems though. So with that, we'll get into our picks for the week. We're going to start with a new addition. We didn't do this last week, but we've been doing so well on the outright bets that Cody's given us plays winners for the last three of the last four tournaments. We hit on Webb Simpson, missed Daniel Berger, but then had Tyrell Hatton and Sungjae I'm. So, Cody, who's your three picks for outright?
So I use, I'm in Canada, for those of you who don't know. So I use Bet365 at my book. So the numbers are going to depend on what book, what your book has and what they're offering. So I locked in pretty early Patrick Cantlay at plus 2,500. So that's 25 to 1. Great number. Patrick Cantlay's a lead. I'm projecting him to be a top 5 golfer in the world. Guy's skill set really lines up well with TPC River Highlands. So I think 25 to 1 is a great number there. Bubba Watson, multiple champion here, looked good in the final round last week at RBC Heritage. So hopefully that shows his game's rounding into form. And I got a really simple rule: bet Bubba at courses he likes. There's courses he doesn't like, and it's obvious, and he doesn't perform as well. When he's at a track that he likes, he can light it up. So Bubba at 33 to 1 plus 3,300, I like that value. And then for a bit of a longer shot, Brian Harman at 70 to 1 or plus 7,000. Harman looked good in the final round last week. He's got good course history here, back-to-back top 10s. We'll talk about him a little bit later on too. But that number, 70 to 1, that's good value for somebody who should be in the mix on Sunday. So Zach, who are you looking for your outright picks?
Okay. Yeah, you kind of stole Harman from me. I played him in cash last week, and so I was already liking him when his price barely moved. But first one is Xander Schauffele. Didn't look great last week, but Sunday I was impressed. He came out, I think it was like a -5 or something he shot on Sunday. So he kind of made up for his early round struggles, but he's 5th on Cody's model this week, and so fits the stat profile really well for plus 2,800. And then Abraham Answer, we all know, plus 3,300. He was one putt, barely missed it from going to a playoff with Webb Simpson last week. He's been playing great. He's 8th on the model. He finished 8th in this tournament last year. So when you can get that great of odds for somebody that's playing well right now, that's pretty great. And then the last one is Victor Hovland. I always joke with Cody that the guys I always like are Oklahoma State guys, as you can see. Mm-hmm. And so but he fits the model well. He's 23rd in Cody's model. His putting has always kind of struggled a little bit, but he's great off the tee and approach and stuff. So if he can putt better, he could finish in the top 10 and maybe even make a run at it. And a great odds at plus 6,000. And then another one I did myself was Rory McIlroy. Obviously at plus 1,200, not the best odds, and he's the favorite, so it's kind of cheeky to say, oh yeah, we won, we picked the favorite. So I am betting him on my own, but he didn't make the cut for the top 3 plays. So with that, we'll give you some other plays, and in fact, I'm actually betting all of our other plays outright as well, but without further ado, let's get into our cash plays, Cody.
All right. So first cash game lock for me is Colin Morikawa. So Colin Morikawa, he's 9,100 on DraftKings, 10,500 on FanDuel, and 42 on Yahoo. but he's pretty safe. He's made 23 straight cuts to start his career. So Tiger's record is 25. So he's knocking on the door. And the kid has just been consistent. So what we're looking for with cash plays is we need guys that are going to make it through the cut that have upside as well. And Morikawa fits that mold for sure. So the PGA stats, he's 8th in shots gained tee to green, 26th in greens in regulation, which are 2 in the model this week. And he's number 13th overall. So I'm locking in Morikawa. One of Zach's new favorite golfers, Brian Harman. Great value, $7,600 on DraftKings, $9,200 on FanDuel, $27 on Yahoo. So he's a steal on Yahoo. Made 2 straight cuts since the break. Back-to-back top 10 finishes at TPC River Highlands, and he's 18th overall on the model. And then I'm also going to load up Joaquin Niemann, 7,900 on DraftKings, 98 on FanDuel, 31 on Yahoo. He's got 2 straight made cuts, had that T5 last week at RBC Heritage. He looked great. He was in the mold. He was in the same category as Answer. If he had a couple more putts drop, he's taking that tournament down. He was putting himself in position to win. So this week, this course really plays to his strengths. He was T5 here last year. He's 21st in shots gained tee to green, 18th in greens in regulation. He's 14th overall in my model. So I think all 3 of those guys locking in your cash lineup gives you a lot of flexibility to kind of round that out. And then just strategy-wise, what I do is I take that cash core, and then for GPPs, I keep those cash plays, and I just have some riskier plays that I build around there. So speaking of GPPs, Zach, who are you liking this week?
Yeah, so first one is going to be Cameron Champ. He's 6,800 on DraftKings, 8,700 on FanDuel, and $29 on Yahoo. He came back, placed 14th at the Charles Schwab with a -10, but he didn't play last week. He's 12th in Zach's model, and then mine, and then 64th in Cody's. And I believe the reason for the drop off in Cody's is because of his putting. But he fits all the other stats pretty well. He's under 7,000, so he gets you if you pair him with those other guys that we talked about for cash plays, you could get up to like Rory or somebody that's more expensive. And then I believe he has top 20 upside if he can find his putting ability this week. And he's finished 30th or better in 7 of 12 tournaments this year, which it's great for that price. And then he's 23rd in the tee to green, and then he's 41st in greens in regulation. And then the next one is Brian Harman. We already mentioned him as a cash play, but same thing as last week. Cody had Poulter as a GPP, but we also had him in our cash games as well, and it worked out nicely. Hoping for the same result this week. So Harman's price didn't change much. He makes cuts. He's only missed 2 cuts of 14 tournaments, and he's placed 28th and 23rd in his 2 tournaments back since the break. 31st on my model and 18th on Cody's. And he's a good putter. He looked great in round 4 with a -6, and he's placed in the top 10 each of the last 2 years here. Last week, he was 3% in cash. I don't think we'll get so lucky this week because of his price and his performance last week and the course history here. But I still like him for GPPs as well. And the last one, he's a guy that you're not normally going to think of when you're talking about GPPs, but Rory McIlroy. DraftKings 11,200, 11,900 on FanDuel, 48 on Yahoo. Comes in 7th on my model and 3rd in Cody's. But the reason he's on here as a GPP and not a cash is because he's been terrible the last 2 weeks for his standards. For the #1 player in the world, I mean, some other guys might think, oh, well, if they scored what he did, they're like, okay, well, that's great. But Rory's the #1 player in the world. He needs to be better. And his problem has been playing bad on Sundays. +4 on Sunday at Charles Schwab, -1 Sunday RBC Heritage, which is not going to get it going for easy courses like that. And he's played in 8 tournaments this year. He's got top 5 in 6 of them. but because of his performance the last couple of weeks, he's probably going to be a lot lower owned than he should be. And so we could take advantage in GPPs this week. Anytime you can get a stud with high upside at low ownership, it's great. Kind of like Koepka, although Rory's price isn't going to change like Koepka's, he still has that upside to win tournaments every week. He's second in tee to green, and he's 35th in green in regulation. So, Cody, who are your 3 GPP plays this week?
So this week, talked about him already. Personally, one of my favorite golfers. First tournament back, so a little bit risky for me for cash, but perfect for GPPs. That's Patrick Cantlay. So he comes in 9,800 on DraftKings, 11,300 on FanDuel, and 41 on Yahoo. So he's 6th in shots gained tee to green, 2nd in greens in regulation. He's 9th overall in my model. He's shot a 60 here as an amateur. And he's priced, he could easily be in the 10K range, and we'll see him in the 10K range in the coming weeks. So he is a bit of a value, not, to Zach's point, not like Koepka last week. But there's several other options in this range. So I think that's going to hold his ownership down. If we get his ownership in the mid-teens, I'm all over that. Another one that is just too cheap for their upside is Justin Rose. 9,200 on DK, 11,100 on FanDuel, 39 on Yahoo. He's rounding back into form. He's undervalued. He's surrounded by other options. Again, if we can get him in that mid-teen ownership range, he's an awesome GPP play. And just to kind of fit with that theme, again, Sergio Garcia. So he's priced up from the last couple of weeks. DraftKings, he's 8,500. FanDuel, he's 10,100. Yahoo, he's $36. He's rounding into form. He was stellar with his tee to green game last week. Missed some putts down the stretch, and same thing happened with Ancer and Neiman, 2 guys he's kind of taken under his wing. But he's on a surface that he prefers, and the putts are going to drop this week. And he's an elite ball striker. He's going to put himself in scoring positions, and that's what we want when it comes to GPPs. The putting is going to regress. Sergio is not a great putter. I get it. But this is a surface that he prefers, and when you keep putting yourself in positions to succeed, those putts are going to end up dropping more often than not. So Sergio at 8,500, he's an absolute steal. So my GPP plays are a little bit more higher priced than what they were last week, but again, it's 3 guys that I think are still undervalued and can kind of give you an edge when it comes to ownership and upside.
Okay, thanks. So just to recap for you guys, so for our cash plays, we like Collin Morikawa, Brian Harman, and Joaquin Neiman. And then for my GPP, I like Cameron Champ, Brian Harman again, Rory McIlroy. And then for Cody's GPP, he likes Patrick Cantlay, Justin Rose, and Sergio Garcia. So I forgot to mention earlier, but we have a Slack chat, and that's while our website's under construction. That's where we're going to post all of our articles, player pools, cheat sheets, things like that. If you're watching on YouTube, the link is below. If you're watching on Facebook, the link will be in the post as well. To get in there, it's free, and it's free for the entire 2020, because when all these other sports start coming back, kind of like we've seen with golf, because of the long layover, no one knows how guys are going to react. And so it's going to take like a month after each of these sports get back to kind of see who's feeling it. And we've already seen with NBA, and we'll probably see it with MLB, that some guys are going to sit out as well. And that's going to play a factor. So there's no reason to be charging people for services for 2020, because it's crazy right now. But I do want to give a shout out to our other guys that we have on staff right now. Thomas Kelly, he's the one doing our projections for ownerships and points projections. And someone asked if we had Showdown ownership and projections, and he said he'll look into doing it. Pretty much that's what's great about our guys. You ask him to do something, and they're, oh yeah, I'll do it. Aaron Marga, he does our NFL right now. Aaron Buss, he's going to help me with college basketball, college football. Jake and Luke Altmaier, they do NASCAR. And then Phil Beneteau, does NBA and NFL. And yesterday we had some good news. Hopefully the players will sign the agreement, and MLB will be coming back just like NBA and NHL, and we can get everything kind of back to normal as much as we can. Once again, you can find us on Twitter at CheatCodeFS for Cheat Code, at the Cody Harvey for Cody, and then at OkiCowpoke14 for myself. But I highly suggest getting in Slack, not so much for PGA that this is an issue, but for like baseball and NBA, it's crucial to be in Slack, because NBA, we all know how that is. 5 minutes before lock, somebody gets scratched or says, I'm not going to play tonight. And then baseball, with weather, you can have all kinds of stuff. So it's great. And even if you don't play fantasy sports, it's a great place to just hang out and chat sports with guys. And not only do we do daily fantasy sports, but we'll help you with season long or dynasty, anything like that. So just come check us out, hang out, have a good time. So we hope you enjoyed this. Give us any feedback, any advice for making the podcast better. We had a little bit of feedback last week that it was maybe a little bit long. So we tried to cut out some things that we put in there, and hopefully I haven't seen how long we've gone so far, but hopefully it's a little shorter. Maybe it's not, I don't know. But thank you for joining us. Cody, you have any last minute thoughts before we wrap up?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the real value comes in our Slack chat. With PGA, we don't have breaking news like NBA and MLB, but there is a lot more value where, you can bounce some picks off me. We've got more outright plays to come. You can take the cheat sheet, the spreadsheet that's posted in Slack. You can copy it, build your own models. There's a lot of value that comes from being in our Slack chat. I just want to mention we don't have a sponsor yet for our podcast, so shout out to Nike Golf. Great stuff. If you want to step up and sponsor us, I need a new driver too. You guys know anybody that wants to sponsor our podcast? Just get us in touch. We're not going to sell out or anything, but if it makes sense, we'll take a look at it. Great job today, Zach, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right. See you.